Hi quilters, I'm Joyce Grandy with Material Girls of Florida, and this is my Christmas Quilting in July Part 1 video. I plan on doing a total of 4 Christmas videos in July, so if you're new here, be sure to click the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified when I post a new video. This is the first project. It's a new pattern for Material Girls. It's available in my Etsy shop as an instant download, and there's a link to the description below. It's a wall hanging with 2 paper pieced blocks and a curved bottom where I attached a couple of bells. If you'll notice, there isn't any binding. I did an envelope finish, which I'm going to share with you in this video. My technique is different from the usual way of doing an envelope finish, so stay tuned to see how I do that. I put a built-in hanging piece, and I'll show you that later also. Let's take a closer look at the block. The tree and the star are paper pieced. The trunk and the gift strip is just squares easily pieced together. Notice the prairie points poking out between the branches. They're super simple, just 1.5 inch squares folded into prairie points. They get smaller as the branch fans out, and to do that I just trimmed the points as needed. Now let me show you the envelope method that I use. Okay, so to start with this piece, I have already done the quilting on 2 layers. And by that I mean, if you look at the back, there's only batting. When I do the envelope turn with this, I'll add stay stitching to keep it intact. But I just did, I'm trying to get close enough so you can see, a simple stipple inside the squares. And then on the outside, this is also a stipple, but it's a pointed stipple. And I did white on white because for me, this piece is not about the quilting, it's about the pattern, and I wanted that to really pop out. So this pattern you saw in the beginning has a curved bottom. So I'm going to make that curve before we put the backing together and do the envelope turn. So let's hang on for a minute and I'll get set up for that. Okay, so I have the backing done. I have 2 pieces right sides together. I sewed, let's see, I tried to mark it so hopefully you can see it. I only sewed about 3 inches in on each end. This whole center is open because I want to be able to turn it pretty easily. And then I pressed it, here we go, it's open now, and you can see the nice, it's a pretty thick seam, by the way. I'd say it's about 1 inch. And I like to leave extra room in this particular seam. You won't notice it later on, and I just feel it's much easier with a wider seam than with a real narrow seam with this technique. So now I'm going to put the 2 pieces right sides together. So here's the top. You can see I cut the bottom shape that I was after. Let's see if I can get that in the mirror. In here, I did this curve, and so now I'm going to put it right sides together, and then I am going to, whoops, let me see, I want to get this end all the ways up there. Okay, so now I'm going to go and sew. I'm not going to make you watch me because that's pretty boring, isn't it? I'm going to sew around the whole thing, all the ways down. I'm not going to leave any opening because that center piece is our opening to turn it right side out. So let me do that and then I'll come back. One more thing, I wanted to show you this before I finish sewing it together. I mentioned the reason I quilted it first was because I wanted to put built-in hanger on the back. And this is what it looks like when before I sew it all together. So these were 5-inch triangles, squares. I folded them in half on the diagonal, and I have them pinned to each corner. And then when I sew this on, I'm going to sew from the other side so I can get a good seam allowance, but I'm going to catch those pieces in the seam so that when I turn it right side out, I will have them built in. If I didn't quilt it beforehand, I wouldn't be able to quilt past those corner pieces. So that's why I did it that way. So hang on, I'll be right back and show you what it looks like after I sew it. Okay, so this is all sewn, except for this center piece is open. The whole thing is sewn and I trimmed it. So let's turn it inside out. And so this is going to take, because it's quilted, a little more maneuvering. But it's just easier to stick your fingers or something not too badly pointed up in the corners. And on this one, remember, I have that curved bottom, so that's going to take a little, whoops, hang on, am I under there? A little finessing to get those corners out. I want you to see pretty much what it looks like, right? There's the opening, there's the turned inside out, and I'm going to work on those corners and then, whoops, come back to you. I have this crazy tool that I don't even know where I got it from. It's a dowel with a very dull point, but boy, it's really great for poking out corners. I don't worry about going through, and as much as I like my purple thing, I've broken several of them by trying to poke out corners. So, you know, they're not terribly expensive, but I'm down to one, so I'm not going to use my purple thing. So let me work on that a bit and then I'll come back. Okay, so it's all turned right side out now. I left one corner undone. Here's what that corner I told you I have the built-in hanging sleeve. So this corner just has to be turned over. Use my little tool here to kind of poke that out. There we go. And then now I would go around, and because I already quilted this, I would go around and just do some stay stitching in the seams. Oh, but let me flip it over. I forgot to tell you this. So on the back, remember I have that opening. I'm not going to hand sew it because that's how lazy I am. I'm going to use this fusible tape. So I'll just put this down in the middle, hit it with the iron. It'll fuse those two open seams together. You could certainly sew it by hand if that's what you want to do, but it's a wall hanging and it's not going to get washed. So just to wrap this up, here's the final finished piece. I top stitched around the entire outside, which makes a nice little pocket for the hanging pieces that I like. And here's the dowel. It's a 3/8 inch dowel, which is, I guess, between 1/4 and 1/2. I bought it at Joann's, but you can also use something thinner. I didn't, usually on a smaller piece, I'll go with the thinner dowel. On the larger piece, I went with this size, and I just cut them with my kitchen shears. It's easy enough to do if you look there. So just stick that in there, and there's your hanging piece. It's nice and easy. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I don't know why, but my grandson says it's important. See you next time.